Hello and welcome to episode 53 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So we have another new genre for us, which somehow we haven't covered, even though it's such a wide-catching genre, and that's simulation games.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of simulation games, my mind does not go to something like this. It goes to something more like, and I don't even know if this is the case, but like a roller coaster tycoon or something like that. That's where my brain goes.
Honestly, when I think simulation game, I think SimCity, The Sims, Roller Coaster Tycoon, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was doing research trying to find something new that we haven't done. And back, I would say before maybe PS2, GameCube, that era, there's a lot more simulation games based on certain things. Like there's a helicopter game. There's, simulation racing games are obviously still a thing, but there's all these weird concepts, and it's like taking a specific thing like tanks and just making a game all about that, which there are still tank games. Like I think it's called World of Tanks is a newer one. But
that's a big one that everyone keeps, like all YouTubers are sponsored by and stuff.
But I doubt it's like this. I think it's more like arcadey, right?
I honestly don't think so. Like from what I could look into, I think that it's just this, but with really, really, really nice graphics, and you're just fighting people and tanks.
Yeah, I mean, I can get behind it to a degree, and I mean, we'll get into it with this game, obviously, but I think modern takes on a lot of this stuff could be cool. It's just, with what they had at the time, what are you really simulating here?
You're simulating war.
Yeah, your war against the controls in the game. But wait, hold on, we'll get to that.
And the thing is, too, like we always talk about games going all in on a specific thing. And I feel like with a simulation game, especially something like this, we're seeing the all in. Like, they're like, we love tanks. Let's just go into all in on the being a tank driver, shooter person.
I mean, you're not wrong. We definitely do love and I think this more pertains to silly games, but going all in on something is the way you should do anything. But I don't know. This is going to be an interesting episode. It really is, because I have such strong yet complicated feelings on this game.
Yeah, it's... my whole thoughts about going into this was it's just like with the Tekken episode, how I didn't realize how much tanks weren't my thing until going into this game.
Yeah.
The most I've ever played was the Tanks Flash game, if you remember that.
Vaguely.
It's just side scroller. You have to aim to get the angle, and you have to account for the wind and hit the enemy tank.
I wouldn't say I think tanks are cool or not. Like, they're fine. Like, usually when you're playing a normal game and there's a tank part, it's usually fun because, you're using that as an excuse to destroy as much as possible.
Yes.
So that is the fun part. Like, in GTA or something, like if you get a tank, you're like, let's go.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't even think about that. And I'm going to use that as a comparison for later because, oh boy, on this one. But I mean, yeah, I'm not one of those like, oh, I love tanks type thing. I just think from an engineering standpoint, it's an incredible feat to build a fortress on these tracks that can fire these fucking giant missiles.
I mean, I would love to see a tank in real life. I never have, obviously, but like, I think that's kind of where the interest would stop for me. Like, I'm not one of those people that like care. Like, I don't know. My dad is like this, like, loves history and like, would watch World War II documentaries. Like, that's not my kind of thing at all.
Right.
So like for that kind of person, this is probably awesome. At least it probably was, 20 years ago. But I don't know. This kind of game is built for a very specific kind of person. And I think that's kind of what all simulation games are, except for the ones that kind of broke out of that, the ones that we both like.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're really targeting one specific niche group of people and just hoping that the game does well because of that.
All right. Well, I'm sure like you, I am itching to get into this game.
Yeah, let's go.
So let's just do it. Panzer Front was released on September 10th, 2001. Some bad timing there, I'd say.
That's the worst timing to release a game.
It was developed by Enterbrain and published by Age Tech Inc. Interesting note that I found today, right before I was just doing a little extra research. The parent company of this developer also owns From Software.
Oh,
who,
wow.
around this time, was doing Armored Core.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this kind of checks out a little bit. I mean,
Definitely, because I thought Armor Core immediately whenever I got into this.
except for Armored Core, you can at least play a little faster than that. I mean, a lot faster than this. I'm not going to
A
lie.
little.
But yeah, as we stated in the beginning, this is a World War II tank simulation game.
Yeah. There's nothing more to say about it. You're in a tank, you shoot a tank, you drive a tank, you're fighting with a tank. That is the game.
That's the game. So I just want to start off with saying, is this the worst game we've played for the show?
I had a feeling you were going to go in this direction. And
See,
No?
I feel the same way. I'm so conflicted, but I'm like, it's not fun to play. And not because it's outdated, but because even at the time, a lot of these things, a lot of the problems that we're going to get into are issues with it. And, you know, I don't want to spoil everything immediately right now either, but I just kind of wanted to get a temperature check from you as to where, like, are we going to be talking shit this whole time? Or are we going to, like, you know, what do you want to do here?
I think, yes, definitely we are. But that's why I compared it to Tekken in the beginning, because I feel like although I didn't have fun with Tekken, and I said if this was based on fun, it would be at the very bottom of the list. I feel like this would be even below Tekken on that fun list. But looking at it for what the game is, I can see why it's not a terrible game. So that's why when you're asking, is this the worst game we ever played? No, I don't think so. But I do think it's the least fun game we've ever played.
Well, I'll leave it at that for now, and we'll revisit that subject in a little bit here. But the intro to this game is very, very serious.
Very much. It gave me Police Quest vibes. Or was that it? Or SWAT whenever we did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Where it's
wish
just like-
this game had the silliness that had, or at least the like trying to be serious and coming off funny.
It has that old-timey war music that goes over it. And then it's like, oh, here's the end game, like tanks going. And then it does this like weird transition where it's like, oh, now we're real life footage and you get to see real soldiers and real tanks. It's like, were you trying to trick us into thinking that the beginning part was also real? And now here's the actual real stuff.
A lot of games around this time did that too, like Cool Borders, for example. I remember that one doing the exact same thing.
They really wanted to show off those graphics. I'm like, you won't believe how realistic this is.
And the PS2 came out this year, so this was not looking good even then.
No.
But yeah, so I think when you get into the actual game and the menus and everything, it's very, very simple. There's not really a lot going on. They don't really tell you much either. Even if you go in the options, there's not a lot.
I think this is by far the most basic menu we've ever seen in a game. I'm trying to think of something that's been less than this, but this is literally just yellow text on a black background. Here you go.
Yeah, and even when you get into like selecting your tank, right? It is insanely confusing that the tank that you select decides the campaign that you're going to play. But the game doesn't tell you which tank is for which country until you've already picked it.
Yep. I was confused on that, and after going through it, because how do you change the mission? Like whenever I went, I would select my tank, and then it brings you to the map, and I'd be like, all right, hit X, and that selects the training thing. And then I could never, like how we see here, it says Russia training. How do you change that?
You push X and then just go down.
Maybe I was just pushing start right away. That makes sense.
Don't tell me. that you didn't do a single mission?
So what I did was I couldn't figure out the whole tank select thing. So I went back and I played tactics.
And that is where you can select different missions, right?
Yes. From what it looks like from the menu you just showed, it looks like it's the same exact missions.
Okay.
I think the only difference is in tactics, you can't select your tank. It's just here's the realistic what the tanks were. You have to use them. Meanwhile, on the select your tank, you can be like, oh, this one's going to be perfect for this map, so I can select this one.
I don't want to go too hard or like right off the bat, but so there's 2 tanks per country. Typically, one is more powerful, one is less powerful but faster.
Yep.
I don't see any reason why anybody would ever pick one of the less powerful but faster ones.
I don't either. Whenever I was doing the Russian missions with whatever tank that is, that can shoot from like 1,500, what was it, kilometers away or whatever they measured it.
I don't know. Yeah.
That was like, I love that one of just long distance sniping out tanks before they can hit you.
So I guess we should go back to like what you're actually doing in this game.
Yeah.
Because we're just all over the place right now. There's so many things I want to talk about. Like,
I know.
I'm itching. So the missions for the most part are literally just kill every tank, right? Or kill every bad thing, whether it's like a gun or a tank or whatever.
Yeah, it's just here's all the enemies. You got to take them out. They try to do the whole mission brief thing where it's, oh, the enemies are coming in from the south, from this area. Go prevent them from doing that. Which, I mean, it's great that you're trying to provide a backstory to why you're doing the thing you're doing. But once I got into the game, I was lost on where I'm going. I'm like, is this the area I need to be at? Or am I supposed to be over here?
Yeah, so I would literally just, like, for example, you just said, I would just go south to where the enemies are.
Yeah.
Like, the maps are useless. They're gigantic for no reason.
Yeah, you go into the map mode and just zoom out and pan all around. It's so much empty space. And you're only focused on this one teeny tiny area that you're fighting in.
Dude, I'm really holding back because I want to go off on everything you just said. So you're driving around in this tank.
Mm-hmm.
It's really slow. And I mean, it's a tank. I understand it's got to be slow, but it's too slow, right?
I thought the same thing. There's some, whenever I was doing, I think it was Britain. Is that the third country?
It's Germany, Russia, and US.
Okay. I was doing a Germany one right before recording. And I would hit X. I'm like, is my controller broken? No, I'm just creeping along trying to get up to speed to start moving. And I'm like, oh, this is and like you said, the first thought was, this is frustrating, but it's a tank. So it's going to be slow.
So I think if the frame rate didn't drop all the time like crazy, then it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I think that makes it feel slower than it really is.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where you are complaining about frame rate. I only noticed it a handful of times, but nothing that really was detrimental to my gameplay.
I just mean, even if you're watching the gameplay right now, right? As I'm moving, there's slow down, it's speeding back up. It's not smooth.
Yeah, I can see that on yours. I wonder if that was on mine too.
It probably was. And I mean, you don't notice it as much when you're playing because, with a lot of these older games, you kind of just go in expecting that stuff. But with this one, I just felt like the slow speed combined with the frame rate constantly dipping, I just thought that's what made it feel so much slower. Because if you look at the Dreamcast version, I don't know if you did that at all.
No.
It is a locked frame rate, and it does not look as slow at all.
Oh. Well, that's good to know. I'll have to check that out after this episode.
I mean, it's exactly the same game. It's just a little better graphics. I believe it's like an updated version, so it has a few more things, but that's it.
Okay. We'll get more into the frame rate and stuff in a little bit. But going back to what you're saying about the controls is there's 3 different difficulty modes. And the difficulty modes in this, from what I understand, is just controlling how you control the tank. Am I right on that?
I didn't do really any research on it, but that's what I thought. We'll get into this as well, but you can die in one hit on the easiest difficulty. So what makes it harder? Like just more enemies or what?
I honestly think the base game is the same, but the difficulty is how you maneuver. So I played on Rookie the entire time. I don't know about you.
Absolutely, I did.
So on Rookie, you just have to push X to go forward, square to go back. And whenever you move the aiming reticle, it turns your tank. I think the next one up is Novice or Normal.
I think Novice probably, but I don't remember.
So with that, I think you now have to manually turn your tank. And then you have an additional, now you can turn the turret separately from turning. And then you have Pro or whatever, where you're also changing the gears at the same time of doing all that other stuff.
So I'm just going to say this. I beat one mission in my entire time playing this.
Nice. You beat one more mission than I did.
So there's one Russian mission that I beat, and it was incredibly short and incredibly easy.
Are you sure it wasn't the training one?
I'm positive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I wrote this down because I was like, finally, I beat one.
I beat all the training missions. We can count those, I guess. But
no, those don't count.
I spent, before we go too far into that, I spent about 50 minutes on the very first US mission and never made any progress. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to start just looking at what all the other levels are because I can't keep playing this one mission.
So I would routinely play a mission for 10 to 20 minutes and then lose, get shot from some enemy I couldn't see. And then I'm like, I'm not going to do that whole thing again. There's no chance. So just move on to the next mission and then just kind of repeat that for my whole time playing this. I mean, besides the US missions, because I played those last and I was over it, I tried every other mission you can try.
Oh, okay. I was just jumping around trying here and there. I already knew I was pretty much done after spending an hour on just one mission. I'm like, let's just see how different each one is, which I appreciate the different levels at least.
Yeah, there's a lot of ones that look the same, but once you get into some of the different ones, there's some different terrains and stuff like that. But for the most part, even if it looks a little different, it's still the same. You know, like there's not really like the only real differences for me. There's like some in towns, some that aren't. That's really the only two things, you know, some that are based around like being on a bridge.
Oh, I didn't see the bridge one.
It's not a bridge, but there's like a river and a bridge.
Oh, okay.
You have to take the bridge because did you try going in the water?
I never saw that, no.
You die immediately if you touch water, by the way, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
How long did you play, by the way?
2 hours.
Yeah, I played about 2.5-ish.
I was trying to hit 3 hours and I just didn't have it in me. I couldn't go forward anymore.
Well, that's why today I was like, let's start a little later because I want to try and hit 3 hours. And then I texted you pretty much right before we regularly shoot. And I'm like, listen, I'm not playing this anymore. I'm not. So like, if you want to go, we can go. But I don't know. At first, I was like, maybe this will become like charming or something, or like have something to it that I can latch onto, right?
Yeah.
But I never found that thing.
And the thing that in the footage we're watching now from you is my last mission that I was trying today before recording.
I think this is one of the first missions that I tried.
Oh, okay. I guess this can lead in because we're watching your footage now. It'll be up on the screen as well for everyone. For the first hour and a half, I didn't know about all those options in the map.
Yeah, so I knew there was a map, but I didn't know you could do all that stuff.
Yep.
And I'm a little confused by some of it. Like, I know that you can like bring in like I'm assuming a plane to just drop bombs on different tanks and stuff. But sometimes the friendly tanks move and operate on their own, and sometimes they don't.
Yep. The green ones are the ones that move on their own. And I think the blue ones are the ones you can control.
But if you don't tell them to do anything, they don't do anything, period.
Nope. In the one Russian mission I did, I'm like going around this whole map and I keep checking my map and the same two tanks are in the same spot, not doing anything. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Go up, go kill things. And you're just staying still.
I don't understand the logic there because the game never tells you that, obviously. I mean,
Nope.
I did not look at the manual for this game. I don't really think you need to, but
I couldn't find it.
oh, okay. Yeah, so the tanks just sit there the whole time. And I didn't know that blue-green thing was a thing until you just told me now.
I just discovered it right before recording, so.
I think you could still control the green ones, right?
No.
Not at all?
It wouldn't let me select on them at all. They were just out there doing their own thing.
I wish there was maybe like a make the blue tanks green tanks and just let them do their thing.
Oh, I wonder if there is. Because there's more to the map options than just that.
All that I could find was you can move them, you can select for them to defend or attack a certain point, but that's pretty much it.
You can change the formations.
Yeah, that's true. But
And
I never
then
did that because they were always like, there's like two of them. Like, what am I going to do with that?
It was so what I did, I ended up stopping last night and I was looking up a video of someone else playing it, as I usually do, because I felt like I was done after about an hour and a half. And then watching this guy play, he's pulling up the menu and telling people where to go. I'm like, oh, was I playing this game wrong the entire time? And maybe that's why it was so difficult.
Well, as you'll see in my footage, I did almost exactly what you did, probably, and I would just go up and start killing tanks and then just die.
Yep. The problem is that when you do the tutorial, it teaches you all this stuff about your tank, what you need to do and how to shoot and move and all that stuff. Not once do they talk about the map and how you can control other people.
That, and my biggest gripe with the tutorials, like period, is they don't let you actually do the stuff. You're watching a video.
But the description of everything is, all right, now turn and aim at the enemy. So I'm like pushing the button to turn and I'm like, why is it not working?
I did the same thing and I just kept getting frustrated because I'm like, why are you showing me this? Just let me do it. Like, I don't understand. Even if they had a little part right after that where you could just mess around and learn, I think that would have been beneficial, but just nothing.
Yeah. And I really thought that when you push circle to shoot, I thought you had two options where you can shoot from the main overview or you can zoom in if you need to get a shot in. But no, it's like you push circle and it zooms in, then you push circle again to then shoot. And the amount of times I pushed the circle button and it did nothing, and I had to sit there and hold the circle button for it to activate and go into zoom mode. And it got to the point where I thought the button was broken on my controller because it just wasn't registering every single time.
Yeah, there's that. And like sometimes it would say nothing in range of your targets or something. I don't know what triggers that because the person would be right the fuck in front of me.
So which mission were you on where that happened to you?
It happened to me multiple times. I don't remember.
So this specifically happened to me on the Russian one, the first Russian one. And I use the map and I see there's two enemy things around a patch of woods. So my plan was I was going to go around the back end of the woods, flank them, and take them out before they can even turn around and shoot me. Get to the back, go to shoot, and it's like, oh yeah, you're not in range. Sorry. What that means, at least in my case for the tank I had, is that you have a long range gun, so you can't shoot up close. So I had to hold reverse and back up until I hit about 600, 700, and then I was able to shoot them.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about the controls we didn't talk about? I mean, you have to shoot by zooming. Like, I think we pretty much covered everything, right?
Yeah, for controls, yeah.
All right, so here, I'm going to go off on something now.
All right.
So to go off on the long range weapons, obviously this is the way the game is intended to be played, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, aiming is
I know where you're going with this.
Okay. So first of all, aiming is a fucking nightmare.
Yep.
Trying to get it perfect is so hard. Which, fine. It's a simulation game. Tanks aren't easy to control. That's why you have to be trained to do it. I couldn't just control a tank right now.
Exactly.
But when you're on the map, you see a tank, right? You see it far off in the distance. You zoom in. Turns out they're behind 5 buildings or they're behind 6 trees and you can't shoot them. But you zoom back out. There it is again. Why?
Or my favorite one was they're just over a hill. So it's like, oh, it's 400 meters away and you zoom in. Oh, you're just looking at the top of a hill and you can't actually hit them until they come over.
It is so insanely frustrating. Every time that happened to me, I was like, why can I see this then? Why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense.
I get your frustration and I get what the game is trying to do. But I'll even go further than what you're saying, where you're driving along, you see the marker above them, it says a certain distance, you see the tank and the gray void that is the draw distance.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you zoom in, and then that's when they're over the hill. So because of the draw distance, you can't see the hill, you can't see the buildings, you just see a floating tank in the background. And like, oh, okay, they're out in the open. Nope, they're behind all this stuff.
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. I mean, why are you showing it to me on the map at all then? You could show the red marker and show that it's there, which is what they should do. They should not show me the tank if I cannot aim on it.
Oh, I didn't know you meant you can see the tank.
Yeah. So like even if it's behind buildings, like you see the tank is there. And then when you zoom in, you're just looking at houses or something.
Yeah, because it can't register the buildings or the hills, but it can register that you can see a tank model in the background. It makes no sense.
I truly don't understand the logic behind that decision because you can't shoot it. So I don't care that it's there because it can't shoot me. I can't shoot it. So I just don't get it. And then you get into the whole thing where somehow those tanks can shoot you, though.
I was just about to go there. Like how you said, oh, you can't shoot them. Yeah, but somehow they can trick shot it off of a tree and hit you somehow. I don't understand this gaming, the aiming logic from the computers.
Literally, you'll just be moving along, you'll just die, and then the kill shot will show, and it'll be like so far away. You're like, there's no way I would have even known that was there.
My one note I have, I was just driving along and I got killed from another continent because it just the angle, the camera had to travel so far to hit me. I'm like, I didn't even know this guy was there, and yet I'm dead now.
I don't know. I got so frustrated, and that's when I would be like, I'm not playing this mission again. I can't do it again.
Yep.
Was I playing this game wrong? Like, are you just supposed to play it like a strategy game? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. I think this is where the biggest problem is for both of us. I think we're going into this as an action game. Fast paced, you got to move, you got to shoot, you got to take out everyone on your own. I think what they intend for you to do is very slow paced, very methodical. I'm going to move here. I'm going to move my other team here. We're going to create this diversion. I'm going to shoot them here. The map, it took an hour for me to beat. It took a guy playing it perfectly 35 minutes to beat that one level. So I think that's the intent of take your time and plan everything out, or else you're going to have a bad time.
It's just so crazy though, because the enemy tanks move quick. Like they're coming at you like you're supposed to do something about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And the fact that you have to stop, aim, and then shoot as all of a sudden 5 tanks appear out of nowhere and they're just a barrage of bullets are hitting you. You're like, I can't hit the nitro button to get out of here. Like,
yeah.
I'm just a turtle in the field.
Well, and then I was doing some of the stuff in the menu. Like I controlled the tanks a little bit. You know, I had them shoot a few times. I even did the like firing support, which didn't seem to do anything.
The firing mechanic of the map, I didn't fully grasp. Like I told them, oh, fire from here to at this thing, and they never did. So I don't know what was supposed to happen.
No, I'm talking about how you can call in like a strike on someone.
Oh, yeah, that was never an option. Like it kept saying not available, so I didn't know what to do.
I did it in a couple of different missions, and like it comes up and you have a grid and you can select where you want them to attack. So I would select a little part with multiple tanks because I'm like, get them. Yeah, you know? And it happened and the tanks were fine.
Oh, it didn't even kill them.
No.
Weird. I wonder if that's mainly for the infantry then.
Maybe, or for like the random little guns everywhere. Because I played this one mission where there was gunners in the houses, and the extent of that was a window with flashing lights on it. Did you do that one?
No, what was that?
So you had to go around and shoot these buildings like windows, and there would just be gunshots coming out of it. You couldn't see anything. So I would pull up to it, and I didn't shoot the right exact spot, so I have to do it multiple times.
I think I did something similar, but then I failed. I don't know if I shot my own building or if I don't know. I did something wrong apparently.
But I also was in the battle menu one time trying to do something, and I accidentally quit the map. I mean, quit the whole thing. And I was just, I could not tell you. I just sat here for a minute like, I think I might be done.
I could only imagine you're one enemy away from beating it, and then you accidentally exit the map. There was no confirmation screen after you clicked on it?
Pretty sure there was, and I selected yes because I thought it was for something else because I was like just overwhelmed with all of it. But I just don't know, dude. Like, that's why I brought it up in the beginning about how this game sucks, because like I don't think that even if you played it the way that the game wants you to play it, I think it is still a bad video game.
Okay. Why, I guess?
The draw distance stuff, I think, is a main big bad thing about it. I mean, a game where you're shooting a tank from long range, that's the thing that you do in this game, and it barely fucking works. And even when it does, there's so many things wrong with it.
You're not wrong. I do agree with you on some aspects of that. I just think, and I'm trying not to go too far into this because we're not at the end of this episode.
I know.
I do think that, yeah, it's not great, but for what it is a good simulation game because it is supposed to be difficult. It is supposed to simulate being a tank commander in war. And I think what they're trying to show is that, yeah, war isn't easy.
Apparently neither is making a good video game. No, I don't know. I struggle with this exact thing. I mean, it's the same thing we went through with so many different genres, but I don't know. I think just the act of doing anything, it's not that it's slow. It's not that it's a hard game. It's that we talked about this a lot the past few episodes. You know what you need to do, and you know how to do it. You just can't do it because the game doesn't want you to do it.
Right. But then how much of that is us playing it as an action game and saying, oh, I'm going to get into the heat of the battle and I'm going to shoot things? Because that's how I played for a good majority of it.
I mean, me too, but let's say I plan this whole thing out and I go to pick off these tanks while they're being distracted, whatever. Turns out they're behind a house for some reason. I couldn't see it. Why?
Yeah,
why is that a thing?
I get that, yes.
But I'm just saying, like, that's the game. That you encounter that in every single level of this entire game. Whether it's a hill, a house, a tree. Like, a fundamental thing in this game is not well done. So that makes it a bad game.
Okay, you're winning me over on this argument.
I'm just saying, like, even if we're playing it wrong, even if you played it right, that's still a problem. You know?
Yeah. All right, you're changing my mind on this.
Nice. But yeah, I don't even know if the game is that hard or if we were playing it wrong. Like, I felt like I was almost beating a lot of levels. But
oh, okay.
I would just, because I played a lot of levels for a long time, like 5 to 10 minutes, some even longer. And then I would die and I'm like, I don't want to play it again. But it felt like I was making significant progress. And the one that I quit, I almost beat actually, and that's why I was so angry.
Here's where I stand on that. I even on rookie, the fact that I was like you said, you get one tapped sometimes, and I would check the map, and it would say, "Oh, here's 2 tanks over here. Here's 2 tanks behind you. Cool. Take out the 2 tanks where I need to." I'm like, I'm gonna go head over to those other 2 tanks. Driving along, and then I get ambushed from nothing. Like it doesn't show up on the map at all. And then all of a sudden, I'm surrounded by people, and I'm dead because I didn't realize that was a thing that could even happen.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden there's like 6 red markers, and you're like, all right.
The worst part is you're taking care of one, then you see 2 more red markers, and then 2 more red markers, and you're like, I'm screwed because I'm just getting overran by all these enemies.
One thing that's a little frustrating to me is, so you only see tanks that are within range of your tank,
Yes.
not the tanks you're controlling.
Correct.
So why can I see the whole map and control them as well, but I can't see what's around them?
True. I also wonder if it's whenever they get up to that area, it's kind of like more or less like Age of Empires, where it's like you have the fog, but then whenever you get up there, you can now see that diameter. So I think whenever you bring your tanks up to those areas, then it shows you what's all around that area of the tank you moved over there.
But what I mean is, like, let's say, I have some tanks over here. I'm over here. These tanks over here, I don't see anything for what's going on with them on my map because they're not in range of me. Unless I open up the map.
Oh, yeah. I see what you mean. Okay, yeah.
So if they did it that way, so for example, if you were going along like you were doing and you had other tanks with you or off to the sides, you could not get ambushed because the enemies would appear for those tanks, therefore appear for you, which is what should happen because that's kind of, they would tell you about it in a war.
Yeah.
They wouldn't just be like, surprise, you would know there were tanks coming.
Also a very solid point, yeah.
I don't know, this game is just like a half-ass middle ground between a simulation and a strategy game, and they don't commit fully to one or the other. So you kind of get little elements of both, but they want to be a strategy game, but they don't want to commit to what that means.
Yeah. And going off the frustrations with that is you tell a group to say, hey, I'm going to go over to this area and I want you to stop there. You don't know when they reach that area. Like I would love a dialogue box to say, all right, in position or something. So you're like, cool. You reach your spot. Now I can tell you the next thing I want you to do. Instead, you got to you're fighting and then you're like, oh, I need to check up on them. Did they ever make it to where I needed them to be? And then you look and they're all dead. And you're like, okay, don't know how that happened.
The only thing that pops up on the bottom is we're in danger or we're dead.
Yeah. And I think that's only whenever, oh yeah, you do see other people say that, like, oh, bail because they're dead.
Yeah, I mean, they're dead. So what are you going to do about it? It's like, I don't know. I don't like the system that they chose. Like, if they would have fully committed to being a more strategy focused game, I think that would have been better. Because
yeah,
I don't even think we need to be controlling our tank normally. I think it could be a whole top down thing and like moving it where you want to go, but it just doesn't work this way.
If it was an Age of Empires type game with tanks, I think we'd be having a whole different discussion right now.
But instead it wants to be a super serious, like you're one guy in a tank, but also you have to control 2 or 3 other tanks for some reason.
Yep. And that ruins the entire experience.
We're really talking shit on this one. I love it.
I know. The thing is I'm trying to find positives, and I tried to find positives as I played. It's just hard to find a positive.
Well, here's more negatives. 1, graphics suck.
They're not great. I don't think they're the worst things we've ever seen, but
for a 2001 PS1 game, not up to par.
Oh yeah. No. When you're that late into the era, like how much was development time that maybe you just didn't have time to do that? I don't know.
I'm just a little confused because the company that, is in charge of this is doing well at this time. They've made multiple Armored Core games. They're making Kingsfield as well. They got all this stuff going on. Like, they should have been more deliberate with this game, I think. I mean, there's also another version of this game that came out on PS1. It's like a update to it with more missions and stuff. There's also a sequel to it on PS2 as well.
I wonder what that one looks like.
Much better, for sure.
It's a weird thing because I kind of get it in a sense of when you have so much going on with the game of having to see, well, one, you can cut back resources with the giant map. You don't need to see all that. But if you have all these, the firepower, the bullets flying, the other, your other tanks you can need to control, that's a lot of resources. So I can kind of get why they had to simplify the graphics.
I almost think they should have simplified it more so that the frame rate could have been stable.
Yes. Dude, the one I was doing today, I was trying to shoot and I was just getting a barrage of bullets on me and the frame rate tanked. No pun intended. To because I guess it's all the because when a tank shoots its shell at you, you see that shell flying at you. So I think it was all that plus all the bullet objects. I was trying to aim and it was just skipping along, like slowly going over on top of like when you get bullets hit next to you, the ground shakes. So now the ground's shaking, getting all these elements getting shot at me. I could barely even move or see what was happening.
That happened to me so many times. And even when you're aiming normally, it still is like stuttery and like you can't get it exactly how you want it ever.
Yep.
I just keep going back to like why you would make a map so big for this game. Like, how are you going to make a game about long range weapons when your game can't handle long range anything?
Yeah, it's a problem with Magic Carpet that we had where you're flying, so you need to see more ahead of you, but the draw distance just hurts it so bad. And that's just the product of the era. Like, I don't think draw distances were great in this time period.
But like, for example, Magic Carpet, for the most part, you're not just going to die randomly from something that you can't even see.
Right. And if you do jump into like a problem with a bunch of enemies, you at least have the abilities to escape quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Where with this, you're like, I'm going to take 10 minutes to turn around so I can run away.
I don't know. I just think about all the times I was frustrated, and a lot of it comes down to the draw distance. And like,
yeah,
I understand what you're saying. Like, this era was filled with this kind of stuff, but I just don't understand the logic of making a game like this when you know you can't do it.
Very ambitious is what I would say.
Yeah. But yeah, other than the frame rate, I also had a lot of problems with if you touch another enemy tank, you like, or not enemy tank, friendly tank, you like clip into them and get stuck. That happened to you at all?
I never had, no.
There's a part in my gameplay which you're not going to be able to find it, but it happened today when I was playing and I was aiming and one of my friendly tanks, one of the green ones, bumped into me and we got stuck together.
Just fused.
Like the backs of them like were stuck together like that. And
that's hilarious.
I was trying to escape and I couldn't. So I'm just sitting there like enemy tanks rolling on by. It was a mission where like the tanks are trying to escape somewhere, so they're all zooming by really fast and you're trying to like shoot ahead of them so you can get them.
Okay.
But I can't aim because the other tank is also trying to escape. So we're both just like jittering and shaking and I can't do anything about it. Eventually, somehow I got free and then I just died right after that anyway.
Nice. I mean, I do have it, and I guess I can understand why this happens, where I was trying to turn into an area and a teammate tank just crashed into the side of me, is pushing me down the road, trying to like get by. And I'm like, I'm trying to get out of his way now. So we're kind of stuck in that sense of a computer trying to get to where they need to be, but you're in their way.
Yeah, I mean, the AI is also very simple. It can't really do anything about that. So that exact thing happened to me where I was going straight and it kind of just like T-boned me and just like kept going and going and going.
Yep.
But it's funny though, because the enemy tanks are really smart. Apparently, it can just fucking snipe you from halfway across the map. But your friendly teammates just run into you over and over again, right?
The funniest part, just going off of what you just said, is one of the missions is like, oh, we need to go help these people. Follow me. So I'm following the tank, which is going 20 miles per hour slower than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like trying to keep up with it. And I'm like, okay, let's just get to where we need to be. Then like one bullet comes out and kills him. And I'm like, well, now who am I supposed to follow? Because this was supposed to be the guy. And now I don't know where I'm going.
I just don't know. Like I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. I don't have much more to say. Like, I also was confused about, like, sometimes I would die in one hit, sometimes I wouldn't. And it was also the same for the other tanks, but there was no indication of, like, so sometimes it would take you multiple hits to kill one.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't look or anything different at all about it. So how am I supposed to know that this one is somehow more powerful than the other ones?
I think with that, it's just like going into your map, because when you hover over the enemy tanks, it tells you what kind of tank it is.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing like, oh, it's this kind of tank, I need to hit it here or something.
Yeah, maybe you're right on that.
Because yeah, there's one tank I was shooting at, and a dialogue box kept popping up and saying, it ricocheted, and then shoot again, it ricocheted. I'm like, what are you trying to prove to me here? I'm just trying to kill this guy.
Almost any tank that happened to me with, I would just shoot repeatedly and then it would just die eventually.
So like there's one specific time whenever I'm shooting at this guy and it kept doing the ricochet thing and I had no clue what to do. So I just, like you said, just kept pushing circle over and over again, letting the bullets go and just keep hitting him. The dialogue box kept popping up of, oh, it ricocheted. And then finally he died. I'm like, I did nothing different there. I just kept shooting you.
I don't know. I had this thought when I was playing today. And I could be wrong here, but it seems to be that this game just literally wants you to memorize every single placement of every tank. You know, it's about you pretty much learning this mission and executing it in a perfect way. It's not about like kind of going in there and improvising, which the game kind of leans that way, at least from what I think, like the mission briefings and stuff, like, oh, they're coming in, you gotta stop them. You know, anything can happen. That's the kind of vibe that I get. Like, you know, you're in a war, anything can happen. But instead, I think the game wants you to know exactly when this tank is going to come through or exactly where these guys are going to spawn and just completely memorize it and execute it perfectly.
Yep. And that one mission I did over and over again for an hour, it got to that point where I'm like, okay, go up here, turn right, take out this guy. Then go back behind this house, and then I creep up, and then I can take out this guy. It was almost feeling like, not Metal Gear Solid isn't the right one, but there's a game where, and we may have played it already, but it's just, that was how you had to play, was just learn where everyone is, and then you can speed run and like go to each point, know exactly when you needed to be somewhere to take out someone. That's what I got to at this point of just having to memorize where every placement was, when to be where, when to not be somewhere. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. I don't know. I mean, we've kind of talked about this for a long time already. What do you think could have fixed this game? Before we get into the reviews, before we get into our scores, like, what do you think this game needs to be fun for you?
Oh boy, everything.
Yeah.
A better map would have been great. Or at least a more active map on your screen would have been great. What else? The better speed of movement. The funniest thing to me was your tank slowing down to a crawl in a field of flowers. That made me legitimately laugh out loud that this huge accomplishment in engineering gets slowed down by flowers.
Anytime you would hit an obstacle too, it would take forever for it to fall over. Like trees or anything?
Trees going through hedges. If there's just a little bit too thick of snow, you slow down. Like, it's a tank. It's supposed to just plow right through these things. Which goes back to what you're saying about Grand Theft Auto, where when you get in the tank, you're unstoppable. You can go through everything. You can go on top of everything. Nothing is going to stop you. With this, it's like, oh, if the enemy just happened to plant a flower bush here, that's going to slow you down enough to kill you.
It's insane. And that's where the simulation aspect of it kind of falls apart for me, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, tanks are slow, but if you look at a tank, they go faster than this.
Yes, they really do. And I can't even imagine having to shift while doing all this stuff. Like, how would you know when to shift or what you were doing?
I just can't imagine someone caring enough to play this game on the hardest difficulty. Like,
Just subjecting yourself to torture at that point. But I think, like, even a health bar or like a diagram of your tank to show which things are hurt or something, like there's no repair, but even if you had a group or medics that can come out and work on your tank and you just have to wait a little bit, stuff like that, like something that it's not like I'm playing blindly and I don't know how well I'm doing.
I would be fine with even if it was just like a warning that would pop up when you're in killing range of another tank, right? Like,
What do you mean by killing range?
like for example, if a tank can kill you with one shot right now, something tells you that.
But what is that metric? Because on one hand, I think this happened to you where it's just you're so far away and you get sniped in one hit. But then there's other times when tanks are even closer and you're just a barrage of about 20 missiles and other bullets,
And you're
but
fine.
you don't blow up yet. I'm like, what is the factor here that causes this?
I thought maybe it was up to like, oh, they hit me at the right spot, but that doesn't matter at all in this game, I don't think.
But it might. I think that like they just happen to hit your weak spot of the tank and that's what takes you out in one hit.
I just don't know. I mean, so many other tanks you kill in one hit no matter where you hit them.
Mm.
So
It makes me wonder if it's that involved because I really don't think it is.
I don't think it's that serious either. I think that the AI is just broken and can get you. I think that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything more you could change?
Not more than what you said. I mean, I think tighter controls, better draw distance is really the main thing. But
Even this, like how we're seeing with the mission brief of like, oh, you want to push here, here's where the enemies are. If, it would be nice if when you popped open your map, you saw this exact thing of like, here's your position on this map and here's your goal, here's where you're going to, instead of just the blank map of you can go anywhere you want.
yeah, and like why is there even fog of war on the map? Because you can just go to it anyway, right? Like,
yeah.
if you went to it and it was still blurred because you weren't there, I would at least understand the logic there. But it's just another limitation of the game. You know, it's not meant to be part of the simulation. It's just this game can't handle this.
Exactly.
And I think that just kind of boils down to my feelings on this game as a whole. It's like, if it was at least doing what it did well, I would be fine with giving it a good score. But it doesn't do anything well. It doesn't even know what it wants to be half the time. It's between two genres that, quite frankly, I don't even like to begin with. But
Exactly. Yep.
with fighting games, with all the other games we've played on this show, we've shown we can give it a good score if it's good at what it does, but this isn't. So it sounds like I'm about to give my score right now, and I'm sorry for that.
I know. I know.
All right, let me read these reviews, then we'll finish this off. So for our first review, Absolute PlayStation gave the game a 52 out of 100. And they said, I really want to like this game, but I just can't bring myself to. The average graphics and limited depth would be perfectly acceptable if only the game wasn't so very hard. I don't consider myself one of the world's best or worst gamers, but I quickly became frustrated and annoyed at being blown up by tanks that I didn't even see, let alone fire at.
Which leads me to another frustration that I just remembered of if there is an enemy to your left and like you're spinning around and it takes forever to spin around to get to them. And then by the time you get there, you get shot and killed. It's like, I didn't even have a chance to hit you.
It's just so unfair. It's so annoying. Like, I just think about it and I get mad, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. In a higher review, Eurogamer gave it a 7 out of 10. And they said, if you find yourself irritated by the notion of having to learn a less than obvious control system, then you'll want to pass this up straight away. And if you're not prepared to sink a few hours into learning the basics, you won't take much away from Panzer either.
You know, if you came to me with a new game that just came out like this month, and you're like, hey, Mike, you know what? I think you're going to like this game, but you need to sink like 3 hours into it just to understand the basic gameplay of it. I'm out already. Like, I don't want any part of that game.
I mean, I've mentioned this on this show multiple times, but like, that's always been my problem with strategy games as well. Like, whenever we were in the studio, I was like, you know what? I have unlimited free time right now because we're just recording an album. I'm going to try a strategy game. I forget which one I picked, but it was on Game Pass. So I'm like, I downloaded it, played the tutorial for almost 2 hours.
Oh,
You know, I'm like I said, I got literally nothing else going on right now. This is the time, right? I did all that, and I'm like, you know what? Nah, no more. So like, that's always been my feeling with these kind of like genres that do that. It's if it has a good tutorial, then nothing matters, right? Like you can pick it up pretty quick. But when they don't, it just ruins it for you.
Yeah, it's just if it's that difficult of a game, like I could even go with like Dark Souls, where it's like, sure, that game is difficult, but it's not like, oh, you need to spend 2 hours on this game to even understand how to even dodge. Like you can't even figure out dodging unless you play this game for 2 hours. That's a bad game. Like bad game mechanics, bad game design. That's what this is. It's like, oh, you need to sink a whole day into this just to understand how to play it correctly. No, that's not a good game design.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure people watching this or listening to this are going to be like, well, that's because you didn't fucking play it right. And like, yeah, I acknowledge that. But at the same time, the game doesn't tell you the right way to play it. You're just kind of expected to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I mean, like, I like Souls games, obviously. So I don't mind figuring things out. It's just, you know, it's just not intuitive. There's just nothing that makes you want to learn how to work that whole map system. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so on the fence I'm back and forth on this.
Well, you know, you can't be back and forth on it for much longer because it's time for these scores. I'm also kind of back and forth on where I want to sit this. But, you know, I'm going to go with my trusty thing where I look at this, I know the general area where it's going to go, and I think, what game would I rather play?
I thought about this and I tried to apply Jimmy logic to my thing of like, oh, what game would I rather play instead of this? And it's pretty much the entire list of games I'd rather play over this one.
So that's why I'm going to go with a 3.
No, there is no way. I knew you were going to go low on this. I knew it.
I'd rather play Expendable.
You're mad.
Dude,
that's ridiculous.
I got to say it, dude. Like, we've said it a bunch of times throughout this whole episode. This game does not do what it sets out to do well. If it did what it wanted to do well, I would probably go with a 5 or a 6, even though I don't like it. But it can't even do what it wants. It can barely even fucking play as a game. Like, this is a game about it's being a tank, shooting things from far away, and it doesn't work.
I know.
So, like, I don't know. I mean, if you look at our original score thing that we wrote, you know, when you get to the bottom of the list, it's like barely works as a game. And that's where I think this is. I was going to go 2.5. And then I was like, you know what?
Oh my God.
That's a little too far. But I think
I
it's
still
a 3.
think where you're sitting is too far. Okay, I'll at least start. Here's where I was starting at a 6.5 for mine.
Whoa.
My thinking is because this is a simulation game, but we're not into this. Like, this is so slow paced. We're not into that. It's just, you really got to be patient and you really got to think about it. So I'm like, putting that much negative aside, does it do what it needs to? I guess, yeah. But throughout the course of the episode, you've been changing my mind on that, where I kind of gave it a pass on the whole hill thing and the draw distance thing, but you're right. If that's the main core of your game and you can't get that right, then yeah, that's a problem. So throughout this entire conversation, my score has been dropping more and more, but not as bad as a 3. I think it goes at a 4.5 because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of bads to it, but there are positives. We didn't really talk about a lot of positives, but like, if this is your type of game, I could see why you could find the positives about how the game plays and how everything moves. But like we said, you got to be very specific. Like, you got to love this kind of game to really like it.
I just don't know. I just don't think I can come up, because even if you like this kind of game, you can find a better one.
For this time period?
I mean, I'll do a Google search right now if you want me to do this live. Like, you know what? I don't even care. I just found 5 different ones for the PS1 alone, just from the first Google search. So, you know, obviously we won't be getting to these for a while, but they all can't be as bad as this.
And maybe they're not. I mean, if this, I know it goes against the whole simulation thing, but if it's more fast paced and like not so realistic, I probably would like this a lot more. But
what I'm saying is, like, is it even realistic? Because even a World War II tank could demolish a fucking tree, no problem. The flowers aren't going to destroy the tank.
You're right. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, if I touch water, my tank's not going to stop working. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not asking you to change your score. If you want to keep it where it's at, the average is fine with me. But like,
no, I mean,
that's just where I'm
selling me on this. I'll drop it down. I can't go down to 3, but I do think I'll drop it down to a 4. So I'll just go down a half point, which brings us down to 3.5, 3.5.
All right.
So, oh boy, this ties with Tale of the Sun and Cool Borders 1. I know where I want to put this.
I would put it at the bottom, but I would also be fine with above Cool Borders 1.
That's where I was going to go, is above Cool Borders. Because just the pain of playing Cool Borders 1, this doesn't match it as much. Like, there's at least more of a game with this than there was with Cool Borders 1.
You know, I'll give that to you. I don't really feel strongly about it, so.
I knew you were going to go low on this.
Listen, I didn't even mention this, but I picked this game. So,
oh yeah, we forgot to say that.
I don't know. I mean, we're doing this thing where we're picking, at least trying to pick new genres for every episode. So I figured a tank game. I mean, there's a lot of those. Clearly, I mean, I just found a couple more. So I figured it would be a nice change of pace. And it certainly was, because the first 2 episodes of this season were a lot more positive than this one. So we're back to the shit.
Hey, I have one coming up soon that I'm like, oh, I think we're going to be equally as negative about it, but we'll see whenever that gets there.
I don't know. I mean, both good and bad games are fun to talk about in different ways, right? I mean,
right.
This episode is a lot longer than last week's, and it's just mostly us bitching about it. So
I feel like this is the first time we didn't really have any positive thing to say.
I don't think I have a single positive thing to say about this game.
I don't think I even said anything positive about it. It's just been all the frustrations.
Well, I mean, you tried to go positive with the whole realism thing, and I was just like, nah.
I know. You shut it down.
But all right. I mean, that puts Panzer Front at number 58.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to say that number. Yeah, 58.
Yeah.
So we're down towards the bottom again. Surprising how we're still at 2.75 for D. I can't wait to see like what's worse than D.
I would rather play D than this game. 100%.
Oh, you did give it the same score.
It's not even close for me. Like, at least D is stupid. This is just like nothing.
I get that.
All right. That's enough of this.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.